Oh, hello there. This is Storytime, and I'm Josh. Today I'm going to be telling you about King Arthur and the fall of his kingdom. So, when Arthur was about 19, he had inherited the throne from his father. He was just a young kid, living the dream of being a king. And this beautiful woman comes and she seduces him, and this witch, and he falls in love with her, and they get married. And turns out he didn't know who his mom was. Well, they were half-sisters, and she's pregnant, and he realizes that they're half-sisters. Someone informs him, and so he's freaking out because incest is bad. And so she runs away because she's worried that when she has the kid, he'll kill it. And all the priests tell him, they're like, this is bad. They give him all these terrible prophecies of what will happen. And so he's like, okay, well, I guess we'll just have to kill it, but we don't know where it's going to be born. And so they advise him to take all the babies born at that time, all the baby boys, and gather them up and put them in a boat, and they just push the boat away. And unfortunately for Arthur, he ends up getting his son Mordred on the boat. He ends up on the boat, but for whatever reason, Mordred survives. As a small baby, I guess he was a good swimmer. He was a natural swimmer. He survives the boat crash. And so he ends up, and later, and Mordred's now an adult, he comes back as a knight for his round table. And Arthur, in his old age, is kind of getting nostalgic. He wants friends and family around him. And he's lost a lot of his close friends and family, so he feels for Mordred. And Mordred hates his father, because his father tried to kill him on a boat with a bunch of other babies. And his mother had raised him to hate Arthur. And so Mordred is a knight, but he's not a very good knight because he's weak, probably from incest. And so he does what he can, but it bothers him very much that he's not a very good knight. It bothers him extremely, and he goes a little bit crazy. And Arthur he ends up leaving. He has to leave to go fight Lancelot, one of his best knights. But under the circumstances, his other friend, Gawain, who talks really stupid, they have to go fight Lancelot. And so they go out, and while the king is away, he says, son, I know you hate me, and I know you wish you hadn't been born, and I wish you hadn't been born either. But you are born, so we're going to deal with it. And I'm going to let you be the protector because you're the rightful heir to the throne as my only son. So I want you to protect my wife, and I want you to protect my kingdom while I'm gone fighting this war. And so he leaves with Gawain, and they go to fight Lancelot, and they're gone for a while. And Mordred has gone crazier and crazier and crazier. He has lost it. He has lost his mind. And so he comes up with this plan. And he's decided that he's going to tell all the people that his dad, King Arthur, has died in battle. And he's going to tell them that way he can be the king and he can take over. And then, because he hates his dad so much, he comes to Guinevere, who is King Arthur's wife. He says to her, okay, well, I'm going to marry you, my father's wife, to get back at my dad for having me with his sister, because that's only fair. And so, he's like, I'm going to force you to marry me, and there's nothing you can do about it. I'm the king now. And Arthur gets a letter telling him all that's going to happen. And Guinevere says, okay, well, let me go get ready. And so she goes downstairs, and she runs away with some maidens, and she runs to this nearby castle, and she holds up there, and the people try to help her. And Arthur hears about this. He's like, I've got to go save my wife and my kingdom from my crazy inbred son. He can't do this. I just can't let him destroy my kingdom and everything I've tried to work for. And so he's on his way back. And on his way back, unfortunately, his friend Gawain, who had suffered an injury, dies. And it was the last of his good friends. So all of his good friends are dead. His kingdom is split. And he's having to fight his only son to save his wife, who cheated on him with Lancelot earlier. It's a different story. And so he's riding there, and they get there, and they're about to have to fight this battle. And they realize that Mordred is using cannons, which were forbidden in war against man. It was It's just the worst thing ever. It's like basically the atom bomb of that time, of medieval times. But it was just looked upon as terrible, and they shouldn't be used on men. They shouldn't be used to fight wars, and he's using them. And which Arthur had invented all-out warfare. And so now this is just taking it to the next level. So Arthur started something, and he kind of got karma for it. And so he goes to fight him. And then in the Arthurian legend, he escapes barely after killing Mordred, and he kills his army, and there's no one left. The armies on both sides have all died, except for Arthur, who is mortally wounded, and his one knight that is left, that is also mortally wounded. And they escape. They're walking through the woods trying to escape, and Arthur tells him, he says, "Take my sword, Excalibur, my magic sword." And he says, "Take it and throw it in the river." And the knight says, "But this is such a nice sword. Why would you throw it in the river?" And Arthur says, "Okay, listen to me, peasant. Take this sword and throw it in the river." And so after a couple of times telling him that, he finally goes and he throws it into the river. And he helps Arthur walk to the river. And Arthur gets there, and he has nothing left. All his family is gone. His one son is dead. All the knights at his table are dead, and his kingdom is in ruins. He has nothing left, and he's slowly dying. And he gets to the river, and one of his other half-sisters, who is a witch, comes by because he summoned her by throwing Excalibur into the river. And so she comes up, and she says, "Oh my gosh, you're dying." He's like, "Yes, I know." And so she helps him onto the boat, and they sail off in their magic boat, and they head to a magical paradise where he can heal and wait for the time when it is his time to come back and be the king once again that England needs. And so he is the once king, and he is the future king who is to return. And that is the story of the last battle of King Arthur.